Have you ever felt as if guilt is running your life? Well, I sure was there some point, and I'm so excited that today in Living Intentionally, we're going to be talking about liberating yourself from guilt, especially an episode to empower working moms. Welcome to Living Intentionally, the podcast that empowers driven women to get unstuck and to take their personal and professional lives to the next level. I'm your host, Carmen. I am here to help you create the life you truly desire without burning out. And as a leading expert in living with amplified alignment between your mind, your energy, and your soul purpose, I'll be sharing valuable insights on mindset, energy, self-care, business, and much more. Plus, you get to hear from inspired women who have successfully built businesses and lives that are both meaningful and fulfilling. Join us as we dive into the topic that matter most and uncover the secrets to living intentional. Welcome back, welcome back. And today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about liberating yourself from guilt, empowering the working mom. And I have today as a guest, Vanessa Poirier. Hopefully I said that right. My French is not very good. She comes from the prairies in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. She's a mom of two, a girl and a boy under 4. And after her new baby, the pandemic, and unfortunately the sudden passing of her father and being burnt out, she had an awakening that led her to leave her 15-year corporate HR grind. And she decided to go and make an impact in the coaching industry. And the beauty is that under her HR role, she was able to go deep because she really wanted to make always a difference in the employee engagement and morale, and understanding that there's so much more to life than just your job, your title, and your salary. So she specializes in guiding working moms to clarity and success, to live judgment free without burnout and overwhelm. So thank you and welcome to the show, Vanessa.
Thank you so much for having me, Carmen.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I just got out of a personal development webinar and just love learning and information. So I'm just always fascinated.
Awesome, awesome. So, obviously, I read your story a little bit, but what do you want to share with the audience? Like, how was guilt presenting in your life with, motherhood, career, COVID, et cetera, so they can understand really where you're coming from?
Definitely. Let's dive into that. So just, yeah, thank you for the introduction that really guides the conversation, because that was actually like the epitome of it all was in that pandemic after my father died. And I actually tackled the shame and the guilt I was feeling with my relationship with my father first. And then I was able to put that into motherhood and my career as well. So I can talk about that with my father. So my father and my mother separated when I was very young, like 4 years old, and my dad wasn't around very often. He was deployed. He was in the military for like a couple year stints at a time, often. So he wasn't around very much, and he did try to make a relationship with me, and I always just kept pushing him away. And then when I started having children, really started feeling like, oh, am I supposed to have him in my life? Am I not supposed to have him in my life? And I was always like torn and felt so guilty and shameful. I just didn't understand the relationship with my father, and then him as a grandparent too. Like, I felt so torn and so guilty that I just couldn't mend that relationship. And then he suddenly passed away in the pandemic after I had my second child, who was 2 months old, and he hadn't even met him yet. So that was very traumatic for me. And I felt so much more shame and guilt because I hadn't figured that out yet. And then he was gone. So I had to go deep inside me because I didn't want to be that person anymore. I really wanted to change. I knew I needed to change my relationships and really look at them because I was just in this avoidance push away pattern, like I don't want to know, I
Totally.
don't want to know until it was like all the things, right? Pandemic, like
Yes.
newborn baby, him dying, and it's like I have to look inwards.
Yes. So I can relate. And it's funny how it always happens. It's like, oh my God, my story like told in so many different ways every time I have a guest here. But my parents also divorced when I was 4.
Oh.
And so my guilt story seems a little different than yours, but what I am interested in knowing is, have you been able to identify how this separation, from your dad, and that guilt that was born from your defense mechanism to protect yourself and not get hurt with him living again, right?
Exactly.
So abandonment in some way.
Yeah,
For
you
me,
spot
was
it.
emotional neglect from my mother, but like how that guilt actually translated in your case to your adulthood life before you even realize like, oh, I gotta have to heal this with my dad. Do you, now that you actually have healed and look back at your life, have you been able to like point out like the keys, the clues that life was showing you? Is like, need to heal this, need to heal this, need to heal this? Because I actually look back and it's like, wow, this one thing made me the person that I became, which wasn't necessarily bad, but the way I was acting always was related to that wound, to that childhood wound that was like open and bleeding and covered with all kind of plasters so no one can see it. So,
Hmm.
what about in your case? Were you able to say like, yeah, this event made me X?
Well, it's so funny because like you never realize you're in it until you're out of it, and like you're
Yeah.
saying, so then looking back, I can look back and I'm like, wow, the pattern was constantly there of, again, you pinpointed it perfectly, the abandonment and rejection and just wanting to be accepted. Like time and time over again, like we moved so many times, or my friends, my best friends would always move away every year. I
Mhm.
went from friendship to friendship, relationship to relationship because I didn't want to be rejected, or I
Mhm.
couldn't find it, and I didn't see it before. But the
Right.
pattern is there. The universe is always sending it to you to be healed in many different ways, and sometimes you don't have to heal it directly with that person. You can heal it with the friendships and whatever too, but it came back full circle for me to heal it with my father.
Yeah, beautiful. I know, and because this is a show to empower the working moms, I know my experience actually translated directly to my working life. So,
Mm-hmm.
because I was emotionally neglected, I closed my heart and said, whoop, no people are allowed in this bubble. And so, how else can I find the praise, the recognition, the significance, the love, the light that I wasn't getting in my house? And so I became an overachiever, right? I was the number one in school and I had 2 degrees and a master's and I got a career. And, that was my source of dopamine, of the happy hormone, right? Like, and it was great because it's accepted by society. But what it did is that, sure, I went in a very short period of time from entry level, employee to an executive, but everything else in my life was a disaster because my entire focus was on getting this need that I had so deeply, and I had no idea that that was what was happening, met, which was, Carmen, you're doing a good job. Carmen, you're so amazing, and just getting that recognition. And unfortunately, that led me to burnout, right? And so, and guilt, because then I wasn't with my kids and I became the mom that I said I was never going to become. I literally became my mom,
Mm-hmm.
which after I healed, helped me have compassion to like, she probably had the same wound and she didn't know how to heal it. And so in my case was like, okay, enough of this generational crap. I'm going to stop it right here, right? It ends with me. And that's kind of one of the things that helped me, take the courage to heal it. But um, how in your case, like how this guilt, because the guilt is so debilitating. Like if you ever have been driven by guilt, you know that you're constantly so like empty because you cannot do anything right. It doesn't matter if you do A or B, you're always going to feel guilty, right? So in your case, how was the guilt affecting your work, your relationships, your, yourself?
Yeah.
How was it for you?
Yeah, I definitely have a similar pattern with you. Like I had straight A's in school. I achieved all the way. I got promoted fairly quickly, and it just never felt enough. And it's exactly that. Like the achievements felt good, and that's where you got your reward boost. And but I still always felt like that wall, and I felt very disconnected and lonely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And did that, in your case, because I know in your bio you talk about burnout as well. Like, do you feel like that also contribute to your burnout? The
Yeah.
constant like, give me more, give me more.
Yeah, it all happened at once because I was, yeah, working at home during the pandemic, and then my dad dying, and then I totally realized it was more emotional burnout. Because it's really now how I see it, and how you like how I see everything is just how you hold energy, that it makes is the difference maker, right? Because you could see people achieving a bunch of things, and it's all different, and we're all humans, but we can all hold it different. Like it's the capacity to hold what you're doing, and if you're not tending to your emotions, they're going to get stuck and you're going to burst.
I know. And I have to say, like, with that, say that what doesn't break you make you stronger. I mean, with the experience that most people who were in their, bearing age, working age, I mean, we got the test of a lifetime. Um, your kids were little, but like I had kids in school from kindergarten to middle school at that time. Between my kids and my husband kids, at sometimes I had 6 kids on Zoom calls while I was trying to work.
Hmm.
And it was insane. It was like the most insane, stressful, burnout, depressing. I don't know what other terms to use, but because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I feel like everyone who actually survived that either went through a massive awakening,
Hmm.
which wasn't the case, or developed coping skills that hopefully were healthy ones, because it was definitely uh, a test from the universe.
For everyone, and I truly believe we all, yeah, got what we needed.
Yes.
Hmm.
So then you decided, okay, I can help the world in a different light with my story, right? With what you went through, what I learned about myself. And you decided to leave your 15-year career. I totally relate to that because I did that too, except mine was 23-year career. Um, Tell me a little bit about that. How was that? Like, how you get the guts to say, you know what, I'm not gonna do this anymore? Because
Yeah,
people
it
ask
was
me that all the time.
very unlike me. If you knew me before, I would never do something like that, because I'm very like, make sure you have a job before you leave a job, or like, like very like specific with the numbers and accounting and like budgeting and all that stuff. And um, so yeah, after my dad died, I was on mat leave. So I did have that opportunity. I am in Canada, so we get like a long mat leave. We get a
Mhm.
year. It's changed to a year and a half now, but
Wow.
so I took
Everyone moves
that.
to Canada.
I know.
Yeah.
At least I had that space, so I'm grateful for that. So I actually joined because I knew I couldn't stay in the nervous system that I was in. I joined a meditation group and just really started to slow down my thoughts and like
Mhm.
feel my body, be aware of my energy and my surroundings. So I did that for about a year. And then I just really had this deep feeling that like I need to be moving into like my purpose, and that there's just so much more than my job title and my salary, because I just a little background about that. While I was having children, I kept going back to work, and I had like the last place I was there 5 years, and I had 4 different managers. And so between children as well, I kept going back, and I felt like I was proving myself, and
Oh,
it just felt so debilitating, because I was like, I'm already like a new mom, and then just trying to juggle this, and then a high new manager, and
yeah.
proving my skills, and it just felt like I wasn't going to get ahead anymore. And then that all rolled into like uh, feeling like defeated as a mother, that like this is as high as I can go in my career, that there was nothing else, and I just had to settle. And I felt so like the achiever in me just felt like defeated at that point
Mm,
as well. And so that, yeah. And then my father passing, just making me think like, what is life really about? Well, how do I want to spend my time and energy? And I just
because
felt
tomorrow
so,
is not granted, right? We don't ever, we always say, my thing was like, well, I still have time. I still have time to reconnect with my kids. Well, that's not true, because they grow so fast. And one day I woke up and my son was 16 years old with a car and a girlfriend, and mom wasn't cool anymore. And it was really shocking, emotionally, to realize that all this time that I invested in feeling a need that I had. I mean, I had to have so much forgiveness and compassion for myself to say, like, you did this, but now, you have a choice. You can sit down and sob, complaining about the things you didn't do and not being able to change the past because it's done. Or you can harness your power in the now, heal yourself, and make whatever comes tomorrow better. And that's kind of what I decided to do. Well, kind of, no, that's what I decided to do.
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. And life really makes you realize that. And like, I did have a period of sadness, and then it turned into that, like totally realizing how short life was. And then I started getting really inspired. And then I have like the biggest list of how many things I actually want to do now. And it's completely turned. But yeah, healing the guilt and the shame I had in that relationship was very pivotal, because once you like dissect like the guilt and the shame, like the guilt is the behavior part, so like pushing him away, but the shame was like feeling like unworthy, like I'm not good enough to hold the relationship. And when I got further down into that, like the guiltiness, it was kind of like asking the question, felt like he didn't understand me. And then I flipped it around, and I was like, do I understand me? And
Wow.
that's always the paradox of transformation, is you do the inverse, you flip it, right? So whatever you're putting onto them, flip it to yourself.
Right.
And once I realized, oh, do I even understand me?
Wow.
That was my end point. And then I realized the like stopping the overwhelm and the being burnt out and everything is actually, I needed clarity in my life. And this was the clarity point. This was the turning point. And so when I got clear about why, I just kept pushing him away, and it's easy for others to see it, but I couldn't see it, right? I was like, oh, my little girl
Well,
felt
because
abandoned.
you are in the thick of it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
You're here.
cannot, yeah, just raise 30,000 feet up and see it, with your objectivity. And so I want to come back to this. I need to stop for a commercial break really quick. But I wanted to come back to like the specific steps you walk through with your clients to help them um, conquer, liberate themselves from guilt. Since that's the topic. So we'll be back really soon. Don't go anywhere. Hey there! Looking for a breakthrough in your life journey? Well, I got great news for you. As a certified master intuitive coach and master energy healer, I can guide you and support you in unleashing your full potential. Let's work together to identify those subconscious blocks that are keeping you stuck, remove any emotional barrier, and reprogram the limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck into empowering ones. With my help, Let's reframe your story for success and replenish yourself with light and love. You don't have to go through this alone anymore. Let's discover what's holding you back and make lasting changes in your life today. Go to the link below at carmenmentor.com to learn more about my coaching services and to schedule a complimentary consult with me today. Remember, it is time for transformation, and I'm so happy to be here to help you make it happen. Welcome back. Welcome back. We're talking about liberating yourself from guilt, empowering the working mom. And I'm here with Vanessa. And now I would like to see if you can share with us what is like your formula? Like what are the steps that you walk people and help them go through the guilt and liberate themselves from that so they can actually feel empowered with their lives?
Mhm. Definitely. So I definitely have a goal focused approach. Like I don't do just like talk therapy. So we have a goal in mind and we're working towards that goal. But usually the problems that come out, like the self-doubt, imposter syndrome, overwhelm, burnout, whatever it may be, those are the things that are getting you stuck. So they're not really in the way, they are the way. They're just got to
Mm-hmm.
break through them. And so we map out a goal plan and we work on that. That's the stuff. That's the meat. There is the self doubt, the overwhelm, the imposter syndrome, whatever it may be. And so that takes, and what's so great about doing it in the coaching world is that it's hard to do it with yourself. Like you might loop into a thought and get stuck there. And it's nice to have someone there reflecting back what you're saying, holding you accountable to the words that you're using, because once you get into a flow, you don't realize how much like what you're saying and how unconscious like it could come out because you're allowing the space for that. And so whatever the thought that you're believing in, which is sometimes really tricky to find, but that's what you do as a coach. You support them by finding the thought that's really keeping them stuck. I work with the thoughts first. So that's mindset work. And then we work with it on an emotional level and a behavioral level. It could be unconscious because when you start talking, just like when you're journaling, the streaming flow comes out and you don't even recognize what you're saying or even how your body's moving sometimes. Like we clench up and stuff like that. So and then even on a somatic level too, which is really cool. So I really use the senses and the feelings and noticing where it comes up in your body, because like emotions are energy, and emotion, they get really stuck, and like they get stuck in your body and you burn out.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what I use the energy to blast it out because
Yeah.
yeah, you can stop the thought, but if the you cannot reverse the energetic blocks, then pretty much, you know, just put lipstick on a little pig, still a pig. So yeah, I really love what you're saying and the process. And I mean, what you're talking about is very hard to find that thought by yourself. I mean, I'm sure you experience this too, Vanessa. I mean, like coaches have coaches too,
Mhm.
because you get caught up in your story and you don't even think it's the problem because you've been telling yourself that story for so long that it's like, what? How is that not true? How is that not a story? How is that, a limiting belief? It's all you know. And until someone objectively points it out to you. I mean, for me, it's like, I have a couple of friends that are coaches, and sometimes it's like not even like getting coaching, but like me talking it out. And it's like, oh, okay, thank you. I got it myself. Bye. Thank you for listening for 10 minutes. But it takes a lot of training to be able to get there, right? It takes and I find it takes a tremendous amount of active listening to yourself, and you said to what it does to your body. I like to pay attention to my Apple Watch, and if my heart rate goes up,
Ooh.
uh, then I'm stopped and said, "Huh, what I'm getting work." I mean, I may not be working out, but it's like as I'm talking, it's like, that's interesting. Or my daughter called me from Europe. She was in Europe a couple of weeks back with her dad, and she called me and she said, like, I have these hives. Now,
Mm.
she's had it here, but she had it at her dad's house, and we thought it's like, well, maybe there's something you're allergic to there when you're there. But then it happened here randomly in my house. And it's like, okay, so it's not the detergent because we don't use the same detergent. We don't cook the same food. and but it goes away, and then like a couple months went by, and then it happened when she was in Europe. And so I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. I need you to journal. What are you getting worked up about? This I know now has nothing to do with anything you are ingesting. This is an emotional reaction to something.
Mm.
And so she's 14, so I'm sure she hasn't journaled anything. But I am pretty sure it's that. It's just like there's something that it triggers this rejection, because that's what hives are. Your body's rejecting something, and
Mhm.
it shows the same way your emotions are showing. So I will report back when I find out what she's rejecting. But the same way as you were saying, when you pay attention to what your thoughts do to your body,
Mhm.
that's when the magic starts really happening, I find.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've been through similar situations like that too. Like, and neuroscience is just coming out with more and more stuff every day. It's like really top edge now. Like the your emotions actually like live in like are connected to the gut as well, and so
Hmm.
it all comes out like it's all so interconnected, and we're just getting into all of that, and people are waking up to that. But yeah, same for me when I did burn out after my dad passed away. I broke out in a full body rash, and it was really scary. The doctors didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I was just itchy and tired. And then when started doing some more work on myself, I actually um, realized I wasn't feeling the full emotion range of anger because I was skipping it. So
Right.
there's still an anger part of me, even from the little girl standpoint, that I was mad that my dad wasn't around.
Hmm.
And so when
Hmm.
I recognized that, I allowed myself to feel it and move through it. And my rash actually started going away. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's like sometimes the things that make you feel guilty or that incubates that guilt first in you are obvious things, right? Like you knew it was your dad. Like I knew I had this resentment against my mom that turn me into the person that I am, which in result make me feel guilty because I became the same mom that she was, so on, so on, so on. But as I heal that, so fast forward many, many years later, I healed that, and I still felt there was something holding me back. And I remember being in this retreat, and one of my mentors says, so now I'm going to get into energy here. She said, the back of your heart chakra is blocked. And I'm like, what? Is there back too? like, you know? And she started asking me questions about my dad. And I quickly said, oh no, my dad and I had the best relationship, and I changed the topic. And she like reeled me back, and she's like, tell me about your dad. And I normally am not a crier. And like I started sobbing. Like everyone got up and got me Kleenex, that kind of moment. And this is what happened to me. The story with my dad is he died of a heart attack all of a sudden. He was in perfect health condition. So 62 years old, nobody thought he was healthy. He just had a heart attack. I talked to him every day. We had the best relationship. He was my best friend. That night, I was pregnant with my oldest, and I didn't feel like talking. So I said, you know what? I don't feel good. I'll call you tomorrow. But guess what? Tomorrow never came. And that guilt, I shovel it down and throw it in my bag because, figuratively speaking, right? I just put it in a place where I couldn't find it because I felt so shameful about the fact that, here I am, 32-year-old woman behaving like a 5-year-old. I don't want to talk today, right? And then I never had a chance to talk to him. So that's why that song from Garth Brooks, if you know country, if tomorrow never comes, like that's like my national anthem of Carmen. Like I always like when the kids leave, or I always say I love you, and I treat everybody like I'm never gonna see you again, because you never know if you're gonna see them again. And
Mhm.
so, but healing that guilt was so hard. You know why? Because I didn't even realize that I had it. And
Mhm.
that's what traumas are, right? Like some of them, we hide them so deeply inside ourselves to protect. I mean, who likes to feel pain? I mean, we do anything to avoid pain, right? So it's
Mhm.
like just being awareness, bringing awareness into the pain is the first thing that you have to heal it. That's my that's my mic drop thing right
Totally.
now.
Yeah, because how do you know unless you bring awareness to it? And that's the beginning part. There's just so much mindset work. We don't realize we're just like in this little space, and there's space around the space.
So much more. So much more. And healing is like peeling an onion. And people are probably tired of me saying that, or like, oh my God, I had so many healings. Why am I still in pain? I'm like, but are you better than you were before? Because we tend to forget the goal, right? It's like, oh, even with money, it's like, oh, I want to make $5,000. Then you make the $5,000 and you still feel broke because
Mhm.
you get used to $5,000. Like, now I want to make 10, but you don't stop to celebrate that you make the $5,000. Same
Mhm.
thing is with healing, right? Like, I want to feel better, but better is not tangible, right? Going back to SMART goals, better is not tangible. So you never can measure how much better you feel. But it's like, yeah, you might need more healing. Every level has its demons, but do you feel better than you felt 6 months ago? Do you feel better? Is your life more whole than it was a year ago? And I really emphasize, I started my coaching sessions with, what was the win for last week? Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll get to the problems. So I want to hear anything that went well, right? Because we don't stop to celebrate like the progress and the beauty of the things that we have. But it's like, yeah, you gotta keep healing, and you might find new things because maybe you didn't have access to that deeper wound until you heal the outer layers and you were able to take them apart. Do you find
Mhm.
that as you went through your healing journey, that also was the case for you?
Oh, yeah. I got to a point too that I was like, "What else do I need to heal? What else do I need to heal?" But then that's a never-ending like
Oh, yeah.
story. And again, also an achiever problem where we think like
Mhm.
we need more, and it's really not that. And like you were saying too, it's like what is that going to make you feel? Is that going to make you feel better? But like what's underneath the better? Like what are you wanting there? You just want to feel ease, or you want to feel like secure, and it's just tuning into that. And the question there is, how do you know the security isn't already here,
Right.
and right, and that's the mind blow part, because it's not over there, it's over here, it's right here. And when we tune into that, then recognizing you already have it, and then everything else that you're trying to achieve is just extra, like it's just bonus fun, like we're just here to explore and have fun and develop new skill sets.
Beautiful. So, Vanessa, how can people get in touch with you and connect with you either in social media or through, I don't know if you have any like free resource that you can offer the audience so they can explore your ways to helping them with uh, you know, getting their life to a whole new level.
Certainly. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Vanessa Poirier. You can see there. And then I'm also on Instagram under hello.coach.vanessa. And I do have a free resource at the moment. It's overcoming the mom envy trap, like when we get really stuck in the
Uh,
comparison game, just feeling like we're not there yet and comparing ourselves to everybody else. And I know how tough that is in social
yeah,
media or at work. Like I did that too for the longest time, comparing
gotta put your
myself to my
blinders.
peers. Yeah, yeah. So I've got a really good guide there, and people can always message me, and I can get them the link to that.
Well, we'll put the links so they can connect with you in the
Awesome.
description of the podcast. And so that'll be super easy for everybody. And I just want to say thank you so much, Vanessa, for being here with us today, sharing your story. And we'll definitely be in touch. So, anything else you want to say to close up?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I love this conversation. And it's so interesting that so many of us, that when you start sharing, how you see how we have a lot of similarities. And that's the beauty in sharing. I just love
It
it.
is beautiful. Yeah. Because I remember at first, I'm like, who else is gonna have this crazy story? Who's gonna relate to that? And now it's like, through the podcast, it's like, oh, here we go again. My story told in a different way, which is awesome. Like I love it. I love it. So well, anyways, thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next week in another episode of Living Intentionally. Bye bye. Hey there, thank you for tuning into today's episode of Living Intentionally, the podcast where we explore ways to live with purpose and fulfillment. If you're new here, make sure to hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at the Carmen Benton. I'm your host, Carmen Benton. I'll be back next week with more insights and inspiration.